Hi, everybody. Morning. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. It's a little after 10:30. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. I'm Guy with DataStack Academy. Today, we are going to do the webinar on one of my favorite topics, which is Airflow, which is used for orchestration, and particularly for data engineers. We use it a lot for data pipelines, what we call data pipelines. So give me 1 minute to finish setting up here, and we'll get started. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Guy. Today we're going to talk about Airflow for data engineers. Sorry, let me get my full screen working here. Just 1 second. There we go. Okay, today we're going to talk about Airflow for data engineers. Airflow is an orchestration tool that we use quite a bit as data engineers for orchestrating pipelines, data pipelines, and we'll tell you a little bit more about what that means in a minute. So real quick, let's give an overview of the presentation. We're just going to start with some Apache Airflow basics, what it is and why we use it, and some key concepts. Then we'll go to a hands-on demo of an Airflow, a DAG or an Airflow application that does some data processing so you can see the interface and how it works. And then after we do some hands-on, we'll turn to some discussion of data engineering as a career and what we do here at DataStack Academy. Okay, so let's get started on Airflow. Airflow is a tool that's used for orchestration. And as data engineers, we use it a lot for what we call data pipelines. You can orchestrate anything, but Apache Airflow is one of the most common tools for data engineers because there's a lot of times that we need to do somewhat complex data processing tasks with a lot of steps that need to happen in a certain order and perhaps with some scheduling. So Apache Airflow is great for that. There's a number of reasons we use it. One is that it's open source, it's community supported. It's also Python based. Python is definitely the dominant language of data engineering, data science, data professionals in general. So it uses a language that a lot of us are already familiar with. It has a lot of built-in connectors for reading different types of files or for cloud storage systems, that sort of thing. So we can use it to interface pretty much with any other kind of data storage system. It has a very powerful scheduler that lets us schedule our tasks in whatever order we need them to run, which is a common thing that we need to do with data pipelines. It has a number of execution engines for other tools like Apache Spark or for Docker containers. So again, it can interface with anything else that we might need to run as a task. And it has a wide range of plugins and other extensions. So again, we can use Airflow to perform almost any kind of task. It's very powerful, and as data engineers, it lets us get the job done. So we use Airflow quite a bit. Let's see. Okay, some key concepts with Airflow. The first one is what's called directed acyclic graphs, or DAGs. And we'll show you a picture of this in a minute when we do the demo. A directed acyclic graph is a data structure that lets us specify a number of tasks as nodes and connections between them as vertices in the graph. And it's directed, meaning that it's processed in one direction, and it's acyclic, meaning that there's no cycles or loops, which means that we know when we process our graph that it'll always happen in a certain order and that we won't get stuck. So directed acyclic graphs are a very useful computational structure for performing this kind of processing. And dependencies are an important concept too, because a lot of times when we're doing data processing, we're implementing data pipelines. We have a number of tasks that need to happen in a specific order, and there's dependencies. A certain task can't happen before another task is finished, for example. So Airflow allows us to specify dependencies between tasks, which is an important part of data processing, running data pipelines. Another key concept with Airflow is tasks. A task is basically the smallest unit of processing, the basic unit of processing in Airflow. Tasks, individual tasks, again, are specified as nodes in our directed acyclic graph, and then we can connect the tasks and put them in a particular order. Related to tasks are operators. Operators are predefined tasks that you can put together quickly. There's Python operators. There's operators for different kinds of tasks, and those are pre-built into Airflow. So makes it easy to put together the kind of processing that we need in order. Sensors are a special subclass of operators. So there's sensors, for example, for file existence, either on a local file system or on a cloud storage bucket. So sensors let us test for some condition and then run a task based on that. The scheduler, we already talked about a little bit. The scheduler handles both triggering scheduled workflows. We can schedule our DAGs or our processing to run at a certain time. So the schedule handles both those pre-scheduled processing tasks and also submitting our defined tasks to the executor to be run. XCOMs are short for communication. They are cross communication. They're a mechanism that let tasks talk to each other. Often we're doing processing. We need to share some information between different tasks. So XCOMs let us do that. And then variables are the last key concept with Airflow. So variables in this context are a little bit different maybe than what you might think with when you usually hear that word. For Airflow, variables are sort of a runtime configuration concept. It's a key value store that lets us query these values from our tasks so that we can access information across various tasks that we need to do our processing. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into the demo. A lot of this will make more sense when you can see Airflow in action. So let's see. So I'm running Airflow. Airflow can be installed in a number of different ways. I'm running Airflow here in a Docker container, which makes it easy to install and set up. And I've already run this because it takes a little while to get going. You can see here the output from my Airflow installation. It's giving me some logging about what's happening. One of the things that's great about Airflow is that it comes built in with a really nice web browser-based interface, graphical interface that makes it easy to get around and see all the things you can do. So here's Airflow when you first run it and log in. Another really nice thing about Airflow is that it comes with a number of predefined example DAGs. So there's already a lot of stuff to learn from with Airflow when you first get into it. So let's take a look at that just before we get into our demo that we built specifically. So here's one of the example DAGs that's for a tutorial on an ETL, which is short for extract, transform, and load, which is something that we do all the time as data engineers. This is a relatively simple DAG. You can see that it has 3 steps for extract, transform, and load. And those are connected. The lines between them show the dependencies. The transform task is dependent on the extract, and the load task is dependent on the transform. So those have to happen in a certain order. And we can see with Airflow that there's a couple of different views. With this DAG, we can look at that in a tree view or in a graph view. In this case, those are going to look mostly the same. The interface is great, again, because when we hover over these things, we can see the task status, we can see timing for scheduling, those sorts of things. Again, this DAG is relatively simple, but this is a good example of something that we do quite often as data engineers, an extract, transform, load operation, where we're going to read some data from one or more data sources, and then we're going to apply some transformation steps, and then we're going to load it into another place in our database or to another data source altogether. Okay, let's look at an example of a little bit more of a complicated DAG, so you can see how powerful DAGs are as a processing tool. Where is the one that I'm looking for? Here it is, example complex. So you can see here, this DAG is much more complicated. There's a lot more steps. There's a lot more dependencies. This is probably more complicated than what we would do most of the time for data processing tasks, but you can see that DAGs allow us to specify any arbitrary number and order and series of connections between tasks. So Airflow is great because we can do, in theory and in principle, very, very complicated processing. We can perform almost any kind of processing task. And it doesn't just have to be data pipelines. Because Airflow is written in Python, we can pretty much use it to do almost anything computationally that you can think of, but it's used very commonly by data engineers to do data pipelines, and perform data pipeline processing tasks. Okay, so let's get to the sample DAG that we've written for this demo today. So this one is called DSA Sensing Loading. DSA is short for DataSci Academy. We have some example DAGs that we've written here, and this is from our course material. So you can see when you first go into the DAG view, you can see the actual DAG and the different tasks and dependencies defined here. You also can see the run history for this DAG. So you can see that when I was first setting this up the other day, I had to move some files around and do a little bit of reconfiguration. So the first time that I was running this, not all the tasks completed successfully. And this is another great thing about Airflow is that it gives you a great view of everything that you need to know about a DAG, about the schedule, about past runs. So you can see that as I was testing this, not all the tasks were completing correctly. And then when I got my new configuration set up, you can see more and more green boxes here showing that this DAG was eventually, by the end of my testing process, running successfully every time. You can see here that we hover over these individual tasks. It shows us task status, time started, time ended. It shows us what operator, in this case, is a file sensor. So Airflow makes it really, really easy to get a lot of information, all the information that you need about whatever processing that you're doing right in one place. And you can see for this DAG, there's a tree view and a graph view. These both give us a little bit different view of the information. So this gives you a good idea what this example DAG that we've written is doing here. So in short, what we have is a data pipeline that reads from a number of different files. We have aircraft, airline, airport, flight, and route data. There's files for all those. So for what's happening here is our Airflow, our DAG is reading from a number of different data sources, and it's also checking for the presence of an archive directory for another processing step at the end. So when this DAG is run, it checks for the presence of a number of different files and directories to make sure that they're all there. If they're there and this file's present condition is true, then we proceed to the actual processing, which is first to initialize storage, which does some preparation in Bigquery for where our data is going to go. The populate step then actually loads that data into Bigquery, and then the cleanup step does some processing at the end to archive those files now that they've been processed. So this is the overall view of our data pipeline. We read some files in, we do some processing, and then there's some cleanup at the end. You can see before I start running this, I'll show you a little bit more about the Airflow interface. And we have a couple of different views of DAGs. We have our calendar here, so we can see when our DAG has been run and future schedulings. We have things like task duration. So we have this nice graph view of when our DAG has been run, of how long each individual task is taking. We have, for example, this Gantt chart view. So we can see this is really useful for when we're scheduling more complex pipelines. So we can plan out exactly when our tasks are going to be finished and the timeline for that. There's also the code view. So we can easily see, this is the Python code that defines the sensing loading DAG. So we can easily see from the Airflow interface our Python code that we've used to define our processing tasks. And there's a lot of other things to the Airflow interface. I'm just pointing out the key features here. But as you can see, Airflow gives us a lot of information that we need all in one place. Here's Dag Details, so we can see previous runs, what's been successful and what's failed, start date, end date, some key features, task IDs, those sorts of things. So again, Airflow gives us a lot of information that we need in one place, so we can understand what our DAGs are doing, what processing is happening, and if everything's not working as it should, to get some insight into why it's not working. Okay, so let's go back to the DAG view. And I'm going to run this DAG so everybody can see what happens in real time when I do this. Okay. And if we go over here, I'm just going to run this manually. Trigger Dag. And when I do this, we can start to see the color codes change. So we can see that the overall DAG status is now running. As we watch, we'll see these other blocks fill in. So the DAG is checking for the presence of our different files, our airline aircraft data. So we can see that those are running, those individual tasks are running now. These take a minute, but we can see task status. And I'll show you as this is happening, for example. So my route data now has been confirmed to be present. So if I click on that task status, it gives me timing. We have other individual control things that we do here. If we click on the logs, we can get a view of the details of that individual task. We can see the timing, task name, dependencies. We can see the file location that we specified in our config file, that where our DAG is looking for the data in this case for this task. So this is another great feature. And again, when we're working with DAGs, and particularly if we're doing troubleshooting, this log view is really useful to figure out what's happening, or maybe why things aren't happening as expected. Okay, so let's go back to our DAG view here. And we can see now that this has been running for a couple of minutes, most of our tasks have completed. This populate step is going to take a couple minutes, and I'll show you why if we go into the logs. The populate step takes a little while because we have several data files that we've read in, and those all have to be written in order to the Bigquery database. So we can see here that there's quite a bit happening in this populate step because we have to do some environment setup and then connect to Bigquery, and then in sequence write some different things to Bigquery tables. And that step takes a couple minutes. So I'll show you as that's happening. And Parham's here now. His other meeting is finished.
Hey guys, sorry I'm late.
Parham's joining us a couple minutes late.
Yeah, my meeting ran a little bit too long. I was hoping to join from the beginning, but I can help now a little bit. Do you mind zooming in a little bit there?
That's good.
Yeah, there you go. That's a little nice.
Yeah. And let's see, I'm going to check again on our status because there's a number of things happening with this task. So you can see as this is happening, the data getting written to Bigquery. Yeah, so so the logs show as this is happening, there's again a number of steps to this task, so we can monitor this as it's happening. This is again another great feature of Airflow to show us everything we need to know about our processing as it's taking place, so we can understand what's happening. And
so this is like the detailed console logs from that task.
Right.
I can see it's like even pip installing, like you're saying how it's setting up the environment for that task. It's pip installing all the requirements for Bigquery.
Yeah, nice. We're doing the environment setup to run, get the packages installed we need to actually talk to Bigquery and do our data transfer. And I'll show you while that's running. So we have in our Bigquery console here, Bigquery is Google Cloud's integrated database and analytics engine. We make a lot of use of this as data engineers because it's serverless, so we don't have to manage instance details and IP addresses and ports and that sort of thing. We just connect to Bigquery and start working with our data. It's great.
It's so cheap.
Yeah, and it's
super
cheap. It's super easy to use. It integrates really well with machine learning tools and with visualization and that sort of thing. So BigQuery we use all the time as data engineers. It's one of the best features of Google
Pretty
Cloud
much in the
Platform.
analytical layer, your data always ends up in BigQuery.
Yeah, it's some pretty
right?
much for for any kind of analytics, your data is going to end up in BigQuery at some point. So in BigQuery, we've set up a number of tables. There's aircraft, airlines, and our data is being written from Airflow, read from our files and written into BigQuery as we speak. You can see these tables that we've set up here, and there's some data going in already. Let's go back to our DAG and we can see the status of our processing task. Something loading.
Nice, and this is great because it shows you can have multiple DAGs and you can run every one. You can really kind of get that bird's eye view of the.
That's a good way. That's a great
workflows.
way to put it. Yeah, it's Airflow gives you the bird's eye view of, you know, when you're a data engineer, you're working with a lot of data. There's a lot of things to keep up with, but that's why we have this great set of tools that really give us insight into all the different pieces of what we're doing. Okay, so now you can see the logs have updated. It's giving us some details of writing data loading, setting up the credentials so we can actually access BigQuery, loading the airport data into its table, then archiving that file. And you can see in steps this process is happening for the different files, that the data that's read from the file is written to a BigQuery table and then the file is archived. So this task should be almost finished at this point. If we go back to our DAG view here.
So I mean, just kind of noticing that, I mean, this is running on your machine here now, and it's uploading to Google Cloud. And, you know, we're running the webinar and the Zoom and everything else on this machine. So don't, it's not, you know, it's typically those operators when it's actually scheduling, when they're executing your code, you know, they're either using either a cloud operator or Kubernetes or Celery. So those typically actually go a lot faster because, you know, they're on different machines. But for the purpose of this demo, we're just running everything locally.
Yeah. So, okay. So you can see we have data that's been written to a number of tables here. And I'll also show you, we have a Google Cloud Storage bucket that we're using for our archive purposes. So now our data has been written to BigQuery and the relevant files have been archived. So we can see, if we go back to our DAG, so actually I can see one of these tasks did not complete this time. So this is one of the things that we get to do with Airflow. So Airflow is giving us some error info about our one task that didn't finish in this case. So as data engineers and troubleshooters, this is the kind of information that we need, because for some reason, this time when I ran this task, one of the intermediate steps didn't complete. So this is something that I would need to go check on.
But this is great that you can see exactly where that was. So that's the populous step, and this is the last step of the populate kind of task.
Right. So we can easily go into our logs and see what's happening with that. So this is, as you can see with Airflow, there's a lot going on with it, but it gives us a lot of information in one place and makes it easy to see the status of our DAGs. A lot of times with Airflow, we're not going to just run something manually, but we have some different DAGs, different tasks scheduled to run on a regular basis. And so Airflow lets us monitor that process and get feedback on what's happening, if everything's happening as planned.
If you zoom in here, I think it's pretty nice too, because it shows all the steps in our DAGs and it kind of shows the history, right? So you can see actually, like back when you were developing this, you had some issues, and you know, you can kind of see that orange and red initially, and then things really started to work and you can see everything green kind of from there on. So it's really nice to have, again, I think that historical view, especially when you're running this every day, every hour, every 5 minutes, you know, in a professional setting, you can exactly see at which moment and which task failed and go directly to that to see what was the issue.
And this brings up another great feature of Airflow, which is the Metastore. So Airflow stores our information, not just about the actual DAGs and the tasks, but a lot of other information about scheduling and run history and that sort of thing. So this is another one of the features in the Airflow architecture that makes it so powerful, because it stores a lot of additional information along with just the exact tasks and what we need to do for processing. So this is, I think you can get some idea now already of why Airflow is a tool that data engineers, I would say, use as one of our most powerful and common tools is Airflow. This is a big part of the data engineering workflow.
For orchestration, I think it's just becoming the number one.
Yeah.
And hands down, and
Hands
really
down.
because I mean the fact that it's open source and Python based too, is as data engineer, we always work with Python. I've worked with a lot of these orchestration tools in the past. And one of the big limitation of them was because they define their own language. Usually they had their own like sort of syntax and language, and it was always limited. I had to learn their syntax to see what they have to do, but it was limited. You know, they can never do as much as things like Python can do, pretty much. So with Airflow, that's really limitless, I would say, is the things that you can do with it. And with this interface, it's just so easy to manage from an administration perspective. Your tasks.
Yeah, even really complicated tasks that have a lot of steps and a lot of dependencies, Airflow makes it really easy to set that up and monitor progress and make sure that everything's happening exactly as you need to. So yeah, we love it.
One of the other things that I really enjoy, I think, the company, actually, a lot of my friends work there, Astronomer, the commercial company behind Airflow, is doing a lot of good things. They have this marketplace even that everybody can develop plugins and operators, additional things that Airflow can connect to. And you can go to this marketplace, open marketplace, and you can easily download and use those. So that, I think that's another thing that just makes it just very, very powerful, where you can extend even the functionalities of Airflow very easily with just either from the Astronomer marketplace, or you can write your own, you know, these operators from Python, because again, they're all in Python, so it's very easy in that sense. Cool. Do you want to?
Okay, that wraps up the demo. Now that Farm's here, he's going to brief you a little bit on data engineering career and a little bit more about what we do at DataStack Academy.
So sorry again, and hey guys, I'm sorry again I'm late. This is Parham or Par from DataStack Academy. And I wanted to go over just data engineering as a career really quick and tell you guys why data engineering is that the career in tech right now. Just quickly showing you some numbers. The top number that we have here is from Bushworks, a very accredited agency. And in pandemic year, in 21-22, they surveyed about 320 different companies, and 81% of those companies said they were hiring data engineers. So that's incredible. In middle of pandemic year, 81% of 320 top companies in US hired data engineers. The second number I think is very interesting. The data engineering right now has the highest average salary on Indeed, and that's average salary. So that's people usually with 3-4 years of experience. But the average salary for data engineering is listed $119K per year, which is higher than data science right now, higher than any full stack developer. And there's 40,000 active jobs right now on Indeed. You can check those out for yourself. The third number I think is the most important one that we show, which is from Dice Report. So probably the #1 most accredited reporting agency. And they analyzed over 2 million jobs globally for this report. And in that analytic, data engineering was the fastest growing field in tech, with 50% growth again in 2021, middle of the pandemic year. And that just really shows the demand for this field. It's definitely the field to be in, I think, in tech right now. Now, if you're thinking about becoming a data engineer, if you're thinking about growing your career as a data engineer, you already are a data engineer, you're thinking about growing that, we have some hacks for you, how to do this. #1, I would highly recommend you pursue cloud data engineering, and you pursue one of the certifications from these cloud vendors. Google has very good certifications at associate and professional level data engineering. Azure also has their own, and of course, AWS as well. Second, build your profile on GitHub. So do data engineering projects. When you do them, check them into GitHub. Employers all over the world now are using GitHub as a way to vet resources. And third, if you want, get your hands on real-time data in projects. Kaggle is a great source. Kaggle is a great data science, data engineering source. They have a lot of real-time data, real-time project, real-time challenges. It's a great place for you to explore. Four, I would highly recommend, if you're learning new skills, use co-learning platforms. Platforms like Twitch is amazing. You can go on Twitch and you can tell people, hey, at this time, this hour, I'm gonna learn or I'm gonna do this project. If anybody wants, just log on my channel and we can do this together and we can talk and, we can really co-pilot this thing together. There's also other good platforms like Repellent. I think I really like Repellent. Again, it's an interactive, multi-development per programming environment on a web base, on a web browser. So that's really good to use as well. I would highly recommend, and again, this comes because we do have a data engineering bootcamp at DataStack Academy. I would also highly recommend going through a bootcamp if you're new to this industry and really want that career, because that's the fastest way that you're going to build a career as a data engineer. And there's some benefits to that you can't really get anywhere else. I would say, is that declared intention. That's a really huge point. When you go through a bootcamp, you really declare your intention that you're going to go and create this career for yourself. And that makes the biggest difference. That makes biggest difference in my life. Whenever I really had that declared intention, that's when things happen, right? And when you're like sort of maybe about something, that's when things happen in the maybe world, right? That's just truth about life. You do get the assistant and co-learning process. So of course you will be with an instructor all day. You can answer any questions. You can answer any questions from mentor perspective. And in our case, the DataStack Academy, you have our instructor guy and you have our mentor. So that's us. And you have a lot of other people that are at the same level as you, right? And they're learning with you. So that's the per programming and the co-learning that happens there is exceptional. I would say last but not least is the career services. So in our bootcamp, we offer an internship. So we actually place you in an internship at a company. And with that, and the amount of career services that you get from us, like me mentoring you and helping you get a job, that would really guarantee you getting a job at the end. And last but not least, my hack is you go work for a consulting company at the end. There's a couple of reasons to that. Consulting companies are always hiring because they always have a project. So it's very easy to get that job. And B, I would say that the thing that happened in my career that's really good in that sense, because in a consulting firm, you get a lot of experience. You get to work on different projects, not a single project. If you go with a company, you might, get a job, but you're pretty much stuck at the same thing for a long time, which is not that good for a data engineer. Data engineers, we are kind of master of all trades. You need to see a lot of different things and a lot of different challenges, and consulting company gets you that. And so that really boosts your career, I think, initially, just rapidly. So like I said, DataStack Academy, we do have a data engineering bootcamp. If you go to datastack.academy, that's a URL, or you can go to datastackacademy.com. You see a lot of resources there. You can schedule a time to talk to me one-on-one. We have a class starting in March. You can register for that. And you can also get started for free. The first 2 chapters of our course is actually available for free. So there is a get started for free link there. Follow that and you get the first 2 chapters of our course, and you can start on that. I do have to say, and I say this sincerely and humbly, that I've been in this industry for a long time. I've looked at what's out there. We have probably the most comprehensive program that's out there. The level of technologies that we teach is pretty vast. We cover pretty much all the main tools of data engineering. And what's important is we cover them on the cloud. So we have a very cloud first mentality. So everything that we teach you right away, we teach you how to use them on the cloud. We've chosen for our course Google Cloud for some reasons that I can talk to you in the future. But that's very important. Everything is moving to the cloud these days, and learning those skills on the cloud, I think it's very key. That's it with us. Again, please feel free to go DataStack Academy and learn more. If you have any questions, we're always here to talk to you. You can, again, there's a link on our website that you can talk to me directly, and we're always here to help.
Yeah, check the website out, check the first 2 chapters of the curriculum out. That'll give you some idea of what the material looks like, and get in touch with one of us. We're happy to answer any questions or tell you more about being a data engineer.
And just get your hands dirty with Airflow. Airflow is a great tool. It's a tool that as a data engineer, you're definitely going to use at some point.
Yeah, all these open source tools, like if you go to the Airflow website, all the Apache tools have great tutorials. They're easy to follow. You can just download a Docker image and get Airflow running really quickly and start experimenting with it. So go do some tutorials and start learning now.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to open the floor to any questions. And please, this is the really interactive part of our webinar and demo. So we highly like it if you even unmute yourself, or even share your camera or screen if you want. And we're here. Let's talk. If you have any questions, please let us know.
Hi guys, it was an interesting presentation, I must say. This is Hari. I'm from Florida, USA.
Hi Hari, how's it going? Yeah.
Well, great. Well, I just wanted to know, would you recommend, there are some few products in cloud products in the market, right? By AWS, Azure, and the Google Cloud. So would you recommend getting a hang of the basics of all of them, or just get into details of one of them? What do you recommend?
You can't cover all of them, right? And even us, I mean, I'd say we are very good at Google and Azure. That's me. I'm pretty decent at AWS. That's what I started in, but I kind of shifted over the years, Google, Azure. No, I would say pick one and kind of start from there. Most data engineers end up being maybe proficient in 2. If you're proficient in 2 out of 3, you're a very senior level, mid-level data engineer. But if you're starting out, just pick one. Go with that. Of course, AWS has the biggest market share. After that is Azure, and after that is in Google. But personally, I have a liking to the Google stuff, and that's for a couple of reasons. I think their material is actually the most straightforward. It's very well laid out. The documentation is really good. And also the technology, it's the closest to open source technology. They haven't really changed a lot of things on the top of the open source. So it makes it very easier for people then to transfer that knowledge to the other cloud. And as far as the certification goes, they probably have the best certifications.
I think so. Yeah, as far as the certifications,
the easiest certification process. Yeah. So that's what I would recommend. Azure also has, it's really starting to take off. So I think Azure is a really good bet. AWS, I mean, yes, they have the largest market share and they have the largest amount of tools, but there's also a lot of people who know the AWS. So if you want a niche, I think having a niche is probably better to have a niche in Google or Azure. Long answer. All right, sorry, but yeah.
That's why probably you're looking at Google in your curriculum. I can say that.
Yeah, and we chose Google for really technology. I think again their documentation is the best. I think it's a more straightforward, and it's again closest to the open source. So when you'll learn that, it's a lot easier for you to go and then learn the other clouds. I think.
Yeah, interesting. Thanks. And it was an interesting presentation on Airflow. I just have one question on Airflow. How do you compare it to, say, a Luigi or something in terms of feature and ease of operation? You automate options like Luigi, right? What is a Luigi, right? That's also like an Airflow.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with that, so I don't know if I can. Do you have familiarity with that?
Not too much. No.
Yeah. Sorry,
Airflow is a maximum in the people are using maximum. They're using Airflow. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, Airflow, I would say, again, it's the fact that it's Python based and the features, the connectors and the plugins and how easy it is to extend those plugins and even to go to like Astronomer marketplace and get the plugins that the community have developed. That makes it a no-brainer for me. The Python base, how easy it is to use, the interface, it's just super easy. And the company like Astronomer, they look into Astronomer. They're a great company. They're putting a lot of commercial support behind it. So they're making it so it's very accessible on the cloud format as well. You know, if you're on AWS, Azure, they're using like managed services. So that's really nice. On Google Cloud, like the Google Cloud Composer, it's straight up Airflow. So again, it's just, you know, no changes. It's just super easy to use that in that sense as well.
I can see that the interface with the plugins with the cloud is one of the plus points. I can see that.
Yeah, exactly. Like the plugins, the executors, the cloud executors they have, that's a huge plus for me. And it's just, it's very developer friendly, right? So I think at the end of the day, it's really going to win the market. It has won the marketplace because of that, because it's very developer focused. It's just, as developers, super easy to use it, Python based, and you know, with a couple minutes you can start writing a tag very easily if you're a Python developer.
Interesting presentation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for being here. Can I ask some question about, are you
Yeah, but professionally I'm a marine engineer, so data is sort of an acquired kind of interest. So data is everywhere, right? So everybody is trying to leverage data for their further development. So actually, I'm a marine engineer. I like to leverage data for my field of operation. I'm looking at turning into consulting as one of the options you're saying. So interesting area. So learning, I'm sort of value adding myself with all this data engineering and data science.
Amazing. Yeah, that's great. And one of my very good friends actually is also a marine engineer, and it's the same boat. And he's using data actually now to we here live in Portland, Oregon. So he works with a company that monitors like the salmon population off the Columbia River. And he had like a lot of tags actually attached to the salmon. They tag the salmon, so he gets. But the tags like get a lot of data. Actually, the really interesting thing he was doing was they were trying to see how much of the salmon population are hunted like naturally, like, you know, by either seals or by like beavers and stuff. So they actually like put some tags on.
My area specialization is shipping, so I'm not into actual biology part of it. I'm into shipping, marine shipping.
Oh, marine shipping. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's completely different.
That's
anyway.
a complete.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ty, and thanks for your sharing your knowledge, and hope to learn much more from you guys.
Great.
Thanks for the questions. We appreciate it.
Anybody else? Let me take a look at the chat, maybe really quick. I think
we had 3.
Yeah, I think I asked that question, so I think.
Perfect. Yeah, we got that one. Okay. Well, if there's no other question, we like to.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and Hari, I see your question about Python libraries. Yeah, so that's, oh, he took off. But yeah, to answer this question before we finish up, yeah, that's one of the things that Airflow makes easy is any of the standard Python stuff, imports and that sort of thing. You can do pretty much any Python code. Airflow will handle it. You saw in our demo today that there was virtual environment set up. So yeah, any other libraries that you need to run for your DAG, Airflow takes care of that really easily, for sure.
All right. With that, we can, I think, probably cut it here. Yeah. Cool. Thanks a lot, guys, for joining, and
thanks everybody.
Talk to you later.
Take care.
Bye.